Many of us look at our past and things we've said, done, and the way we've behaved, and we shudder.
You just feel the lowest of the low is what you feel at that point. And you just feel so remorseful. You feel so sorry. It's just, I am so done with myself on doing this mess over and over again without ceasing.
I went to downtown Manhattan. I checked out a porn store one time, and it felt like I was like in Wonderland, like Alice in Wonderland. I was just like, wow.
You know, they find it, and just, you can hear these guys talk. It's like the first time they ever saw a pinup or they ever had some kind of sexual experience. It's like, it lit up my light. I mean, it was like, that was the cocaine of choice. I mean, that was it. And so, and they can all look back at that and say, that lit me up like a 2,000 watt light bulb like I've never experienced before, and they never forgot it.
And I was running the ragged edge of sexual addiction. I was surfing pornography at work. When the internet came in, I was involved in that project for our company, and it was like crack cocaine to me. It was just a horrible thing. It was too easy to get, it was free, it was right there, and it was ruining my life.
An alcoholic never has to have another drink again. A drug addict never has to use again. You know, they can avoid tricky situations. They may live the rest of their lives and never even see their drug of choice again. But where do you go to escape your own brain? I mean, how do you hide from your own memories?
The basis of addiction itself is the avoidance of reality. So we'll use anything that allows us to mind alter, and sexual material allows us to mind alter. It creates the same chemical firing in our brain that alcohol does, that cocaine does.
The worst part of being addicted is the feeling of just not being able to stop, despite your best intentions. And I think for me, like, I so desperately wanted to not do it anymore, especially after I became a Christian, that when I couldn't, I felt so defeated, and that I did not think, I really began to believe this was going to be my life, and that there wasn't going to be anything different.
My suspicion is those that are more healthy, less wounded, and I speak in relative terms, will try certain things through life or be exposed to certain things through life and move on. There are others that seem to be more wounded, that it masks the pain they have felt and says, this is my answer.
It is a conservative estimate that on any given Sunday morning, in any conservative evangelical church, over 25% of the men have been on a pornographic site that week.
One thing that I know for sure is that it is absolutely more prevalent than anybody really knows.
Truth. Most of our churches fear this area because so many men struggle with it, and so many in the pulpit struggle with it.
They want hope. They want freedom. They just don't think they're going to have it.
So we don't take it on, or we don't talk about it, and we don't talk about that there is healing.
You better believe there's real hope. You do not have to live in the addiction anymore.
This really can be faced. Pornography addiction, sexual addiction, all the shame that comes with it, it can be faced. There is freedom from it. There is healing from this. The creator of the universe is not intimidated by the creators of the internet. And the true intimacy that he provides for us with him and with others through his son can bring anyone. It can bring anyone true freedom from the mousetrap.
What became very extreme source of anger in my life was why it had such a control on me. Why did it have such an impact? Why was I so dependent on it? And why did it just, it control everything I did?
There were so many times when I thought in my head, I'm going crazy. I'm literally going crazy. Because this addiction affected me where I really thought, okay, well, I have a choice. I could leave him, I could kill him, or I could kill myself. Those were my three options.
It's progressive. You know,
it's like falling in a well. You don't just stay near the top. You end up at the bottom as time progresses.
You know, when I'd come back, I'd get further and further into it. Either more and more difficult things to deal with, more hardcore things. And that would also be the same with my affair.
If I'd heard of addiction, it was drugs or alcohol or something like that. I never dreamed it would be anything that would ever involve my family. I thought if you wanted to stop doing something, just stop doing it. And that was the hardest part as a wife, was knowing that I had to learn that I didn't cause this to happen. I couldn't fix this.
It has been reported that every second of every day, there is an average of a little over 28,000 internet users viewing pornography, spending an average of $3,075 each second. The research that has been done about the pervasiveness of pornography is overwhelming and mind-boggling. We now know that the average age of first exposure to internet pornography is somewhere between the ages of 8 and 11. The largest consumers of pornography are males between the ages of 12 and 17. More than 70% of men ages 18 to 34 visit a pornographic site in a typical month. In 2004, there were 372 million pornographic web pages. 2.5 billion pornography-related emails were sent each day. There were 100,000 websites offering illegal child pornography and 72 million annual worldwide visitors to pornographic websites. We also know that pornography is just as big a problem in Christian circles, with study after study showing that over 50% of Christian men regularly view pornography. And it's not just a problem for men, as seen by the roughly 9.3 million females who view internet pornography each year. One major issue with understanding the pervasiveness of internet pornography is that the research compiled is outdated by the time it's published. In reality, the situation is worse than anyone can quantify. In 2006, the worldwide revenue brought in by pornography was over $97 billion. Today, the revenue has dropped drastically. Many makers and distributors of pornography are struggling financially, which at first glance seems great. But it's due to the fact that there are now many regular citizens, so-called pornography amateurs, who are making and posting pornography on the internet of themselves for free. The pornography industry has countered by producing more violent and more grotesque pornography than what's available for free, further desensitizing its audience and creating an insatiable appetite for this harder core pornography. The amateur pornographers then begin replicating what they've seen and post it online for free, and the cycle continues. It's clear that we're in the midst of an epidemic. It is also clear that the majority of those searching for freedom are finding others with their heads buried in the sand, unwilling to acknowledge the problem. People who are themselves lost in the same problem, not knowing where to go for help, and others who want to be helpful but feel overwhelmed and unconfident about how to provide relief. The good news is that there is help. The good news is there is hope. There really is freedom from sexual addiction. This DVD series is designed to help those who are currently struggling with pornography to find a lasting freedom. It's designed to provide answers and resources to spouses of pornography addicts and to parents whose children are already struggling. It is also designed to give tools to those who are in the position to help others know how to do so confidently and effectively. With interviews from some of the most respected experts in the field and testimonials of some who know firsthand the devastation that pornography can cause, this series will provide the answers you're looking for to find help, healing, and true freedom from the mousetrap.
There's some standard characteristics what makes an addiction an addiction. One is obsession. If I'm obsessed about this behavior and it becomes my organizing principle of life, I'm figuring out how can I do this, that's a first hallmark. The second is continuing. I am continuing to do this despite negative consequences. So if a person continues to look at pornography despite his wife finds out, her husband finds out, I'm disciplined at work, I keep doing it even though this is clearly not working for me. That's the biggest, one of the biggest two hallmarks of an addiction. Third is compulsion. I keep doing this even when I don't want to anymore. I've tried to stop and I can't stop. At least I can't stay stopped.
If this is fantasies, dreaming about the meal, salivating of what you're going to eat, ritualization, setting the table. They'll linger in despair, which keeps them ready to be triggered at any moment again, and they're right back into fantasy, and the cycle perpetuates itself, sometimes as early as an hour later.
When somebody in a marriage has an addiction to pornography, it devastates the relationship. They can't be intimate, they can't know each other, one is always hiding, and it always seems to change the personality of the person who's addicted. And usually changes it in a way that is not only just devastating to the marriage, but devastating to the point that it leads to divorce, or that it leads to even, in some cases, much worse things.
We've been told she'd gone for a run, so I knew what routes she had gone from her house to various things. So I ran all night. Thomas's sister, Katie Beth, ran with me, and we looked for Micah in drainage ditches, everything.
We knew the longer the hours went, the less chance we were to get her back alive.
We spent all day at the Bartlett police station, and it wasn't until that evening, 8-ish, I can't remember, 8 or 9 that evening, the police brought Terry and I and Casey in and told us that Thomas had confessed to shooting her. And it was actually Thomas's dad that told me that there had been an affair.
When the Bartlett police did their investigation immediately the next week after her murder, said that they had found porn on his computer.
Satan took that marriage, and one of the tools that Satan used was pornography. And so the message was, you need to have a relationship with God first and seek your sexuality through what God intended, rather than seeking the cheap stuff that Satan's trying to deliver.
Sexual addiction in all its forms is really not about sex at all. It doesn't matter if the issue is pornography or affairs or prostitutes or whatever. This isn't about sex. It's about much deeper issues. And we really look at sexual addiction is better described as an intimacy disorder. This is an impairment of intimacy. I don't know how to be really intimate with myself, in touch with my feelings, for example, willing to tell the truth. I don't know how to be intimate with other people. I don't know how to be intimate with God.
I call it Christian intimacy theology, that we are made in the image of God, and because we are made in the image of God, we are built to love and be loved back at a core-to-core level. God, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity, three but one, that's the most intimate of all relationships that exist, and we're made in that image. So when there's an incongruency or an emptiness or a broken bridge or a wall, whatever metaphor you want to put on it, that I'm not getting that loving and being loved back at a core level, then it's almost like starving to death as far as food is concerned. Well, if we're starving internally because of a lack of intimacy, a lack of relationship, we'll put anything in there that gives us a feeling that we're not starving for love.
When someone experiences trauma and doesn't have the capacity or the support system to make it through that hurt, it makes a huge and lasting impact. According to Dr. Patrick Carnes in his article that was entitled The Making of a Sex Addict, he reports that 97% of sex addicts report being emotionally abused, 81% are sexually abused, and 72% are physically abused. So when left unhealed, these traumas become key factors in later development of addiction.
You know, one of the biggest things with any kind of trauma, or, whether that is a physical abuse, sexual abuse, abandonment, relinquishment, anything major that happens in your life, you get these negative messages about yourself, and you learn that you're not good enough or you're worthless, and so then you begin to act as if those are true. As you grow up, you begin to see that as who you are, instead of what I've been taught about who I am, and that you begin to really believe that.
Because if you're at the point of surrender with God and say, I need help, you still have your own area of accountability to then go forward and say, if you truly are surrendered to this process of recovery, then you have to then now go confess it to somebody then, because this is not meant to be done by yourself.
Satan works through shame. You know, he's referred to as the accuser, and he whispers in our ear something kind of like, you know, you better not share because you really are the only one and no one else will understand. So let's just make this our little secret.
He wins when we keep it a secret. As long as I keep it a secret, he wins. As soon as I tell, and it's that old thing, confession. You know, God wants us to confess our sins one to another, and when we don't do that, Satan keeps his grip on us. He's got a hold of us as long as we do that.
You don't recover in a vacuum. The core of an addiction is deception and dishonesty. And so the opposite is true in recovery, that I get into honesty and in fairness and integrity, that I begin to let my life be a life of integrity, even if that integrity is being able to admit to another person, you know, I told you I didn't ever want to do this again. I found myself right back in there today, and I don't want to be there. The integrity is that I got what we call getting current. I let somebody else in. I don't keep it as a secret, because secrets keep us sick. So the very first thing is that I've got to get honest. I've got to get into a group that understands where I am, and I've got to be able to receive from them the gift of acceptance about what's happened.
One of the most common things that someone just entering into recovery will ask is, what are some things I can do to help prevent relapse? You know, what do I need to know in order to make the possibility of success greater? And I think the answer is, first and foremost, you have got to begin rebuilding an intimate, personal relationship with God.
Connection to God and a spiritual healing is critical for anybody who is trying to deal with addiction and trying to enter into healthy recovery.
The day that he came to me and revealed everything that he had been doing, I don't know how to explain it. It was very painful. I just remember just shaking, my body shaking all over. And I guess I was at a point where I felt hopeless. Where I felt like we're never getting it out of this. I'm sorry. Because this had been going on for so long. And I felt like we're just never going to get out of it. And I was angry, I was hurt, I was frustrated. I didn't want to have anything to do with him for a while. So it was just a mixture of emotions.
The level of betrayal and hurt is as maxed out as it can be. There's no greater hurt. It's very similar to be physically abused, to have sex with another woman, to be looking at porn. Now, if the wife has a distorted view of pornography because all guys do it, girly magazines, she may not be able to verbalize how deep a hurt it is, but once she is educated about what's going on in her husband's fantasy, both when he's looking at the porn and when he's having sex with her, she's going to experience, you know, that deep hurt.
A spouse who attempts to control their husband's or their wife's addiction by their own efforts are often referred to as co-addicts.
Co-addiction is really the flip side of the coin from addiction. And a co-addict is simply, by definition, somebody that's in significant relationship with an addict. But now if we get past that, in very simplest terms, an addict is addicted to his substance or her relationship, the substance or behavior. A co-addict is addicted to the addict.
What we have found with sexual addicts, that is, if they can experience or will allow themselves to walk through abstinence and go through the withdrawal, and I'll tell you, the withdrawal from sexual addiction is as physiologically powerful as many other drugs. They can get the sweats, sick to their stomachs, sleeplessness. They can feel like they're just kind of going crazy because their brain is responding to, where's our drug, where's our drug, where's our drug, where's our drug?
What I hear from women more than anything else is I thought I was the only one. Women still are very quiet about this issue. We used to think, for example, that only men were alcoholics, and surely women didn't struggle with this, and we know today that half of alcoholics are female. I really believe that in my lifetime, statistics will prove that half of sex addicts are female, but so far still, few of us are talking publicly about our own struggle with sexual addiction.
So I think that there's that shame, there's the isolation, there's the feeling of being the only one, because we're told you are the only one, because you can't be addicted to porn. So it makes you feel all the more awkward, all the more shameful, all the more alone. And so I don't think they're gonna step out and be like, I'm the only one. Anybody wanna come alongside with me? You know, so it's very, very scary. And unfortunately that they're just not willing to step out.
Truth. Most of our churches fear this area because so many men struggle with it and so many in the pulpit struggle with it. And to take it on is to say that it's real. To take it on is to say that it really is that monster. To take it on is to say that you can't just pray your way out of it and think your way out of it. You have to relate. And to take that on within the church is to own the fact that there is something here that's very powerful.
I'd say one of the things that the church struggles with is fear. Some churches will get this material and they'll look at it and they will, become active and thoughtful. And there may be some sermons presented, there may be some activities done, and they'll find out that they have a problem that is overwhelming, and they'll become afraid, and they'll turn a blind eye to a situation that at some point they're going to have to face.
We're very good at do's and don'ts within the church. We're not good at relationships. That is, I understand that struggle.
Traditionally speaking, the church has struggled at best at learning how to be intimate with one another as good-hearted, good people trying very hard and being in relationship, but a quality and depth of relationship that speaks to intimacy, to be open and vulnerable and caught and loved for who you are, not what you are or what you do, has been a struggle for the church.
But there's a reality that Christianity is fleshed out not in the pew on Sunday morning, but it is fleshed out in authentic relationships where we're being real with each other. We're bringing the truth to the life. I tell people, I want to bring the Bible to my life and my life to the Bible, just as I am.
I've had opportunities to have many conversations with parents who've been hearing about issues with pornography and want more information so they can parent their children more effectively in this area. the first thing that I tell them is that they really have to grasp that the pornography available today is not the same pornography that was available to them when they were children. And so it can't be ignored and it can't be minimized.
There are dads who will minimize it and say it's a phase because they looked at Playboy. There are also moms. Moms that grew up in a situation where, yeah, all the guys looked at girly magazines. You know, I've had many moms, wives say that in my office in marital therapy.
The parent's previous experience with pornography as a child will hardly resemble in any way whatsoever their child's experience of pornography in today's world. I'm sure most parents are familiar with this term called gateway drug that is typically referred to things like marijuana or alcohol. And the idea is that if children start abusing these things, it then opens the door to more destructive, harmful drugs. And first of all, I have to say that pot and alcohol are at the top of the list as far as substances that bring about the most damage in society. A lot of that stems from the fact that they're considered lightweight, not a big deal, but I think that's for another conversation. But the one thing that is most overlooked as to the potential of addiction and the harmful effects it brings to the consumer is pornography. It's not being talked about. So when you think of the fact that the average age of exposure today is around age 8, that means parents should be in active conversation with their child before they reach that age.
The healthiest conversations about sex happen from the time a child is maybe an infant. Seriously, because they're a progression of conversations. There's not the talk about sex or the talk about sexual addiction. The healthiest thing is, it begins as simple as parents have this little newborn and they're teaching them, here are your toes and here are your fingers. So we don't skip all the body parts. And we just very matter-of-factly share those kinds of information. And we watch for teachable moments to teach about how the body changes or where babies come from or all those kinds of things. I really don't think that any child is too young to have a healthy, age-appropriate conversation about sex with their parents.
Just something I feel strongly that we have to protect our children from. And
that's one thing I don't understand is the parents that, don't try to, they let their kids stay for hours on end on the internet when they're asleep, or, we have friends whose kids are on Facebook at, 1 and 2 in the morning. There's no good that can come from that period, having been a teenager.
Also, all of our kids' stuff on the internet we have access to.